Thank you for listening to Project Creator. My guest today is Joenrhuz J.R. Tabanda, one of the creators, producers, and hosts of the Time Capsule Show podcast. We talked about Joenrhuz's life as a performer, a singer, an artist, and musician, and how he came together with his brother and two of their friends to create a unique podcast in the Time Capsule Show, which you can find in the description below. If you would like to be a guest on the show, please get in touch with me. I'd love to have you on. And if you would like to support the podcast, I would invite you to visit the Patreon link, again in the description below. And of course, I would appreciate your support. And JR, thank you so much for joining us on Project Creator today, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here today.
You reached out to be a guest and with one of the most interesting backgrounds of anyone I've talked to in the time that I've been interviewing people. You have done so much in the content creation space. And it's just, I got to figure out where I even want to start. There's a whole bunch of different things. But why don't I digress for a moment and let you introduce yourself to the crowd. Tell us, hey man, who are you? What do you do? Who is JR?
Awesome. Well, my name is Joenrhuz. I also go by JR. I recently graduated from St. John's University during the midst of the pandemic. Not the best time to graduate, but hey, I'm alive. I'm thankful to be here, and I'm making the most out of my time through these creative projects that we're both working on. In college, I did a lot of real estate and a lot of acting also. I worked on sets of Netflix, HBO, and the most entertaining experience that I've had so far was dancing in Times Square at like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in the morning, dressed up as Peter Pan for Korean national TV. And I was being chased around by a Korean boy band. So that was definitely very interesting. Probably the highlight of my short acting career in college. But aside from that, I'm also a musician. I sing and I played piano for 10 years. So performing arts has always been a huge passion of mine. And I've always been active with my creative background. And that's what led me to co-host and co-produce a podcast called The Time Capsule Show with one of my closest friends. It's my brother and two friends that I met in high school and elementary school. And our mission is to define life in the 21st century through everyday people with everyday stories. And it's amazing the kinds of people that you can meet podcasting, the different stories that you hear. And although they sound so different compared to other people's stories, there's always going to be those commonalities. And I think that as a whole community, we share common struggles and common successes in the way we live. And I definitely want to share all those stories with the world.
And you've had your time growing up as a content creator, being able to put your toes into so many different kinds of water and try out so many different interesting things. Where did it start? Where did you first realize I have something that I need to get out, right? Was it music? Was it performance? Take me back to the beginning of when you realized, look at me and watch me do this thing.
All right, yeah, awesome. I mean, let's go all the way back to when I was a kid. Let me think. I mean, I remember the first time I touched the piano and I was crying actually because my mom was like, she really wanted me to play piano and it was hard the first time. I mean, my hands were so small and the keys were really big and it was just really hard, but I eventually got used to it. And, playing piano, it really got me used to being in front of people. I used to be so shy just playing for my mom, playing for guests when they would come over to the house, but that slowly got me comfortable, being in front of people. I mean, it may seem small performing for 3 family members, but that's the start. That's the genesis of being a content creator, in my opinion. And this may also sound funny, but I grew up in a religious family. My parents are religious, so I was always an altar server in the church. And being an altar server, you're in front of so many people, and you're in a way, I was kind of performing. So I had a performing background with piano, and I was also performing at church every Sunday, being an altar server, and that definitely got me over. I got over my stage fright doing that, and ever since then, I always loved being in front of people. I always loved public speaking, and just being creative and creating something. One thing about me is that I hate going with the flow, and I hate just following what everyone else is doing.
You've got like a big personality, right? And this is a podcast and this is not in video format, but I can tell you, you've got like this big genuine smile when you talk about your life, whether it is singing or whether it is dancing, playing piano. I could just kind of, you exude this energy of excitement to do something, to perform. And there's a lot of weird parallels to my experience, because I was an altar server as well, probably about 35 years before you were born. But yeah, that did feel like that. Actually, now that I think about it, like the whole pomp and circumstance of the church and everything you had to do, and you had to be at just the right place and say just the right thing and do right. And now, you're going to be in the choir, right? You were, was there a choir, and you had to get up there and learn the hymns and work with a music director. So that
Definitely.
bug bites you so early in life. It just gets a hold of you.
For sure, yeah. I mean, going back to those days, I mean, when I never really thought about it in the moment, but in retrospect, I'm like, yeah, this is definitely like performing arts. Like, you have to put on your gown, the albs. There's always colorful things that we put on top to, decorate the church and what we wore. And even when it came to music, like we had to sing too with the choir, and there was rehearsal and this and that. So it was definitely like putting up a Broadway production each week.
And that gets you started down this path of going, okay, now what? I want to do some more. I want to do some more. And so you did, I'm assuming, different types of little things throughout high school. So you studied, congratulations, by the way, on getting your degree in
Thank
the
you.
middle of a
Thank you.
pandemic. Very good. What did you study? Cause it wasn't performing arts or anything like that. I mean, you got like an actual legitimate degree.
Oh yeah, I know. It's very unorthodox. Many people don't believe me, but it's mathematical physics. Yep.
Okay. We're supposed to be talking about content creation. We're supposed to be talking about artists that we are, but dude, why mathematics? Why mathematical physics? What drove you to that?
So a lot of things drew me to that. I mean, when I love music, I love creating, and I my parents always told me that that's not gonna give you the big bucks. That's not how you can raise a family with very comfortable means. And that got to me, and in the moment I didn't really do my research, and that was my own fault. I only thought that becoming a doctor, becoming a lawyer was the only way to live. So originally I chose mathematical physics as a pre-med degree. So I was taking a lot of pre-med courses with that, because I think I was always good at math. I was always in the math bees growing up, so that was another performing, quote unquote, performing thing I guess I did too growing up, just being on stage doing a bunch of math bees. And me and my brother always dominated it each year. We just won back to back doing math bees, but math always came natural to us, so I said why not. But then halfway through it, I hated studying math after we got to the advanced stuff, because we were literally proving a positive and a negative zero. We were trying to prove why 1 + 1 = 2. And I'm just thinking, I know 1 + 1 is 2. Why do I have to prove it with A, B, and C? So, and it just wasn't creative. I was like, what am I doing? Like, it just felt like a rock was in my head each time I would go to class. And I figured out, like, something is wrong here. This isn't where I feel comfortable. It didn't, I mean, it still somewhat came natural to me, but I just wasn't happy. So I picked up a communication arts minor and just tried to finish my degree and figure out what to do with it afterwards.
Well, and okay, so that makes a heck of a lot of sense, right? So you have a foundation, you have at least a solid step that you can say you completed, you did the work, you powered through. Congratulations for not dropping out and saying the hell with this, I'm going to go be a Broadway star or something, because plenty enough people do that, right? There's that weird difference between following your dream and realizing your passions and living in the real world. I think you articulated that extremely well. So what I'm curious, and you mentioned earlier, is the opportunities that you had to get into acting roles. How did that come about? How did you find yourself being put on television, as it were?
So it actually started in college, because I was ousted by the theater performing arts department. Like there's we I tried to do join the entertainment groups on campus. Some were very nice. So I sang with some people, I filmed with some people here and there, but the theater people there just weren't welcoming towards me and my brother, so we left. And it was hard because I wanted to find ways to express myself, so I reached out to opportunities outside of our school. And that's when I, in a way, I was kind of being an entrepreneur, figuring out where to go, where to manage myself. And I saw this website called Central Casting, which was in New York City, and all you have to do apparently is show up for one of their days, bring your passport with you, sign up, and they'll take a picture of you, and they'll just call you randomly when there's a role that suits you. So I did that. I didn't know what I was doing. I just kind of went in blindly, and 1 week later, I got called in Queens College to film a show. I'm trying to remember what it was. I believe it was Mrs. Fletcher. It was on HBO, and we went to film that. And it was such an exhilarating experience. Like that was my first like background acting, and just being around a production set. The food is amazing, by the way. So if any college student is out there and you want amazing food with good pay too, kind of go get into background acting because you'll never be hungry. But it was such a great experience to be around other creatives and just to see the whole process. I definitely learned a lot from that.
You got a taste of that professional space and how they work on movie sets. And I have a friend, a contemporary down in Atlanta, who has been, and this is an older guy like me in our 40s, who's been plugging away in that Atlanta, Georgia scene for so long. And he's gotten himself into a couple spots. He's been in a couple Marvel movies and little flashes here and there, and he's got that face. But it sounds like New York is a good scene, because what I hear is in other parts of the country where film and television production take place, it's a grind, and it is a meat grinder. And if you're not willing to stand in the rain for 6 hours for a chance to possibly walk on, they don't want nothing to do with you. So it sounds like New York City is really kind of that, what everybody might think it is, a metropolitan opportunity space for creatives and creators.
Definitely. I mean, I kid you not. People travel all the way from the most eastern part of New York and Long Island to travel to sets. People come all the way from upstate. People come from New Jersey, Pennsylvania. I met some people that came from Connecticut just to work for 1 or 2 days on set. And it really shows you how New York is this center of arts, entertainment, media, and there's nothing like it. I mean, sure, there's Los Angeles and sure, there's other entertainment hubs around the country, but there's just something about New York that's special, the energy and the opportunities that are here.
So if I can put you on the spot and try to get you to tell me the best experience you have had in this lifestyle of being a maker, being a creator, to tell me that one memory that is so special to you of something you got to do.
Well, in terms of being a maker and a creator, I would say definitely in my podcast and just meeting all different kinds of people. We've interviewed someone who was a Secret Service agent for the White House. We've interviewed someone who's in Colombia getting her master's. And we've also interviewed someone who has a PhD in communications and is a professor at a very prestigious school. So I just get to meet so many different kinds of people. And we created this format where we asked 6 very thoughtful questions on the time capsule show. We asked them what they're grateful for, what principles they live their life by, what's something they would put in a time capsule that would be opened up 100 years later. And just to hear people's stories, just to give them the mic and to be able to hopefully share that with the whole world is probably the experience for me that really stood out.
Well, and you very nicely segued to exactly where I was going to go. So thank you. You kind of, what do they call it? Do they still call that jumping the shark? I don't remember if that's really the term anymore, but so keenly interested then to talk about the Time Capsule Show, a podcast. And you mentioned that you host this with your brother, who's sounds like you guys have been that tag team, that dynamic duo for your entire lives, and a couple more friends. What's the genesis of this podcast? How did this get started?
Sure. So it started in December. That's when we started just recording and just trying to interview people. And we eventually posted our first episode in January, but it started off as an idea with my brother and my other friend Monica, and they were, we're in the midst of a pandemic. There weren't that many opportunities, and when you just have so much time at home to just think, you start asking these existential questions, not only to yourself but about the people around you. Like, why am I here? What's my purpose? What are we doing with our lives? And you can imagine a lot of college students in their 20s think these things, but no one really talks about it. And it was great to have a friend and a brother who talks about these things. So we decided, hey, let's start a podcast. We don't know anything about podcasts, but let's go for it. Let's just dive into it. And I think that's what we did. We just reached out to our networks. We started to just interview with people that we knew that were in our circles. And I just remember our first interview, I didn't really know what I was doing. I'm like, I guess I kind of know how to talk to people. I'm always the type to ask questions in school. So this might be kind of easy, but then, it was challenging for sure. Just trying to figure out how to read people during the interviews, how to just kind of gauge where the energy was going. But I think that after that first interview, it kind of just was a domino effect into the future interviews, and just carrying that same energy and passion through all of them. And 4 months later, we're still doing it. We love it. And we don't plan to stop anytime soon.
And I'll mention again, I think I might have said it the pre setup of the show here. It's timecapsuleshow.com. Is a website where folks can go and jump in and just take a look at the featured episodes, everything. And I like the fact that you really highlighted the four of you, right? You got some nice little, I'm looking at it right now, some nice little placards of yourselves and with your contact. I love this is the mindset of the creator. I love how each one of you has a little saying next. It's not just, Joenrhuz and Monica and no, it's yours is everyone has a story. He has a story. She has a story. They have a story. What will your story be? There's something so artistic and poetic and compelling about that. Like that makes you want to tell it, your story. That makes you want to go, yeah, me here, throw my hands up. I want to tell my story. Right. That's a very powerful little statement. I like, I'm assuming, is it Joenrhuz? Is that your brother?
Yeah, we look alike, right?
A little,
Is it the name?
just a little. But he says, you can't spell story without a why. And here again, it's like finding meaning and purpose. Really, really interesting. So definitely recommend folks go take a look at the website. Lots of cool stuff to poke around and play with and do different things there. And of course, obviously listen to the conversations that you have. Is there a particular guest so far? You've mentioned that you've talked to everybody from Secret Service agents to, you name it, college professors and normal people from everyday walks of life. Is there a guest that you've had so far that has stood out to you in some way as like, oh, wow, that was amazing?
That's a really good question. And I value every single guest that we have on the show. And I wouldn't want to just pick one person because I think that everyone has something different to bring to the table. And just to hear everyone's stories, I mean, some people have struggles that you think that they wouldn't even be going through because you think their life is so perfect because of the occupation that they have or how much attention that the media gives them and how much attention they have on their social media. And you would think, hey, they must be living such a great life. But then these people actually have common problems. They think about the things you think about. And it goes to show you that there might not be one answer to life, that fame might not be the answer to life, money might not be the answer to life, and that even if people are in certain positions, they're still questioning and still thinking. And just to hear all these similarities in so many different people's interviews, it just really kind of makes me happy because that's the whole point of the show.
All right, so you're very diplomatic, and I respect that. Everybody is awesome, and they are awesome. So I'll twist the question around, and I'm going to try to pull this out of
All
you.
right.
Was there a guest that surprised you that you weren't expecting where it actually went?
Good question. A guest that surprised me. Well, I would have to go with Anthony Palamba. He was actually my professor back at St. John's University, and we interviewed him. He's the one who has a PhD in communications, and he's teaching communications at the University of Virginia. I'm not sure if he has a PhD in communications exactly, but I know he has a PhD. And I mean, it was a very heart touching interview. As a professor, he was very open about his his journey and his approach towards education. We don't hear many teachers speak the way he speaks. He is in it for the students. He is in it because he really wants to teach the people that's in front of him, and he doesn't have this boring approach towards education where it's just here's a book, study. He wants conversation. He cares about the students' moods and how they're feeling in class, because growing up I didn't have teachers like that. I would have to say, to be honest, I had teachers who are kind of just like, who would yell at students, and sometimes you don't know where students come from in their homes. Like, you don't know what kind of families they come from. You don't know what struggles they go see when they're not in school. And many teachers are just very careless, I gotta say, the ones I've had in any case. And to hear a teacher like him actually have this profound care for his students and education, it was just very heartwarming, and it was a very emotional interview too. And I couldn't stop smiling throughout that interview.
It felt like a bit of connection with somebody that you wouldn't have expected to have that connection with. You said that your experience with educators and teachers was not always a positive thing, and so this person, you're saying, surprised you, because it really sounds like, and interest of full disclosure, I listened to that episode. So I'm actually genuinely surprised that you brought it up, because he started right away at the beginning of the episode by complimenting you, you guys in general. And I felt like as soon as he came on and he said, thank you for having me, and I'm proud of you, and you guys are doing, this is so good. There was a moment right in there where the listener, you sounded like you were taken aback by him coming on, and he's supposed to be the guest, but the first thing out of his mouth is to all of a sudden say, thank you so much, you guys are awesome. What? No. You're the guest. I'm supposed to tell you that you're awesome, and you're over here giving me props. Was that one of those things about him that just sort of laid out, like you said, just a genuine human being?
Right, and he's just such a great guy. I'm so happy for all the successes that he's had, and he was just very open about his struggles, his successes, what he thinks, the positive and the negatives. And for someone to be that vulnerable through a podcast, for a teacher to be that vulnerable, makes them more human, and you can just relate so much more to them. And that's why I would say that he just stood out a lot for me in that sense.
That's outstanding. Have you okay, I'm stick on the podcast here. I got my list of things that I wanted to ask a fellow podcaster. Okay. Have you had a podcast, and no naming names, right? We're not here to be negative or to try and cast a bad light. Have you had any that were really tough to get through? Like, oh my gosh, what are we doing right now? And I'm not sure if this is going to work. Have you had that moment of crisis and question in the middle of this conversation that goes, I don't know if this is going to work?
Well, to have those moments, I think it comes to every podcaster when it comes to, you feel kind of awkward during the interview, or you're not sure how to read the energy. I kind of did mention that earlier when I was just starting off with one of my first interviews, but yeah, I definitely did feel that for some, but I'm a problem solver along with the host on the show. We're problem solvers, and when we see something going left and we don't like it, we kind of sway the direction, move right, go up, go down, and just try to figure out where to target them. Some people are very shy at first, to be honest. There is one interview where you can kind of see that they're, kind of shy, they're uncomfortable, because many people haven't done a podcast before and speak about themselves. Many people just don't really speak about themselves. So just to kind of get them comfortable, to get them to speak about themselves, is definitely challenging. But yeah, that's definitely something that we faced in some interviews.
So I want to ask about the way that the four of you work together. I want to hopefully maybe pull back the curtain and show the wizard to everybody here a little bit. So what's the creative process between the four of you? Like, how do you determine that you're going to have this guest or the direction? How does the division of labor between the four people? Because for me, I'm a one man band, right? And for so many of us out here doing podcasting, we're flying solo and we're everything from the director, producer, writer, actor, post production, and marketing department. So you've got a team there. How do you guys work together?
Right. I mean, I'm happy you mentioned that because I've told my brother so many times that I told him if this was just me producing this and filming and interviewing and editing, I wouldn't be able to do it. You definitely need a team. There's that saying, right, that you can go far in life alone sometimes, but you can go even further when you're with people. And the four of us, I think that we all bring something different to the table. Some of us bring the creativity, some of us bring the logistics, and some of us just kind of tie up the whole group together. Like I'm happy you brought up the wizard metaphor because we're kind of like that scene in The Wizard of Oz when the four of them are skipping on the yellow brick road. You see, like you notice how they're in a straight line skipping, and no one's ahead of each other. That's how I like to view our teamwork. We're just walking in a straight line together. We're all giving equal output and input, and yeah, like Vanessa, she's our video editor, and she's also a host, and she does a lot of the video producing behind the scenes. Monica is also our all host. Monica is the one in charge of booking, and she finds these incredible people to put on the show. These like incredible students, real estate people, a lot of real estate people that she knows. Great woman. And my brother and I, like, we are also like in terms of booking and producing. I'm in charge of the audio and also seeking other guests, and we're like a little business. We're like a small business, like a little deli that's just figuring it out as we go. Like we didn't know anything about podcasts going into it, but we're just learning as we go and just helping each other and carrying each other when we fall.
I guess I can be just completely honest with you and say, wow, I'm jealous. But I think it's important to at least have those connections, if not immediate, like within a community. And I've always tried to surround myself with other folks that are doing the same sort of thing that I'm doing, whether it's YouTube or it's radio or it's podcasting. Do you find that you are getting requests from other entities to kind of work together? Have you been approached by anyone to say, hey, this is amazing, I want to work with you guys? Have you had any outreach to your group from outside?
Definitely. And it was like within less than a month that we put our like first few episodes up, we had one of our guests reach out to us via email and say, "Hey, I heard about your podcast." And we didn't none of us knew this guy. Like we were emailing each other like, "Hey, do you know this person? Do you know this person?" Everyone in our team was like, "No, we don't." And we he reached out to us and he said that he loved the episode that we put out. I forget which one that he saw, and that he wanted to be on the show to share his story and his journey in the industry that he was in. And for us, that was huge. Like in the moment, it seemed kind of like it came too quickly. Like, whoa, this is our second episode, and someone's already reaching out to us to be on the show. But we took it like we were happy with it, and we just didn't really expect that so soon.
That's got to be a great feeling, right? I've been fortunate, right? You reached out to me, right? So I feel like I must be in the right lane. This is still a relatively new podcast, right? I'm not new to the genre or the format, but this is a new thing. And I'm keenly aware of, how much work goes into it. So what I guess I want to find out from you is, what do you envision as the future for where you guys, you said you're operating like a small business. It is, you have to have a growth mindset. So what do you think is the next step, so to speak? Do you guys have a long-term plan, a goal, or is it just kind of we're walking this brick road together side by side, locked in arms?
Yeah, that's such a good question. It's so funny that you asked that because I'm always asking people on our show, like, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And to get asked a similar question to me, I understand now why the people we interview give it a second to think about it. I mean, where I envision this podcast, hopefully the four of us are still together as a team, whether we go big or go small with the podcast. I hope that we're still friends and that we're still a team, and whether we add more people or not, that we stick to our roots and that we don't sell out. I definitely want to grow the podcast. I definitely want more people to hear these stories, these amazing stories that we're putting on Spotify and iTunes and Instagram and all the social media platforms. And I just want to outreach many people out there as much as possible. And in terms of guests, I hope that we can get people who want to share stories. They can be celebrities, they can be influencers, and they can also be people that you just see on the streets every single day. Because, like I said, everyone has a story. It doesn't matter which part of life you come from, we all have a story, and we can always find similarities in each other's stories. So I just hope that those are the things that I see, hopefully soon, but in the near future, that's where I want to see the podcast go to.
It's great. It's great to have that, because I appreciate the fact that it's almost a cliche thing that folks that do what we do will say, I don't want to sell out, man. And we know that the reality is it would be awfully cool if all of a sudden, like one day, Viacom knocked on the door and was like, hey, here's a check. Right. But we know the reality is we put in the work. We do the grind. We go through the motions of creating our art and our passion. So I think I like the fact that you come right out and say, I hope we don't sell out. I want to stay pure to my art. Do you actually? Wow. I just thought of a question that was not on my list of things I wanted to ask you. How cool is
Do it.
that?
It always
All right.
happens to me.
So, well, and so I'll give you my scenario, right? I have an individual that I'm friends with, and he is getting into this space as well. And, one of his big struggles is around that idea of, do I want to make it big, or do I just want to create what I create? And the question I have for you is, do you consider yourself an artist?
Do I consider myself an artist? Yes, I do consider myself an artist. For me, the way I would define an artist is someone who creates with their own mind. They get influences from their environment, their surroundings, but at the end of the day, it's their own mind that creates and envisions, whether it's a project, whether it's literally painting something like an artist, whether it's putting on your clothes for the day and trying to be fashionable, going out in the streets. I think that that's what an artist is, just putting in your own creative input. And in terms of this podcast, I think all four of us are putting in creative inputs. We may clash sometimes, but we all learn from each other. And creativity is great, and it's not boring, and that's why I love it.
Well, now hold on. You opened a door.
Uh-oh.
My friend, and I got to
What?
walk through it. You said we clash sometimes. Okay. So walk me through a situation where maybe there's a little bit of a disagreement on something. What does it mean when you say that you clash sometimes?
Yeah, when I say we clash, like you nailed it. Like we disagree, and that's completely normal. And I'm happy that we disagree. I'd rather have us disagree and be truthful with each other instead of holding in emotions and getting angry over time and getting passive until it explodes. We disagree over a lot of things, whether it's when to post a certain thing, how a certain thumbnail is supposed to look like, when someone should be scheduled. And yeah, there's small things. Sometimes it can be bigger, but I think that with communication in any team, you just have to express yourself and you have to trust that the people around you will understand. And in the past, I've definitely haven't treated differences this well. So I feel like those are training grounds. Like in high school, there's a lot of clashes, a lot. And
Sure.
college too, college there are definitely a lot of clashes too, and you just kind of learn, like all of those are just building experiences for the more important things. And this is an example, one of those more important things where you learn how to deal with things much better.
So when is it hard? When do you find the times that you look at what you're doing and you're going, this is awesome, but I'm exhausted? Have you had any of those moments of questioning or doubt or uncertainty of where you are and what you're supposed to be doing next?
Definitely. And if I'm going to be so honest about this, I mean, I expect it from my own interviewees to be honest, so I have to be honest too about it. Like when you're first starting, of course, you're not going to have 1,000 subscribers, 1,000 views. So just seeing the numbers definitely brought me down at first. I try to ignore it, but it's hard to ignore when when that's part of the job, right? Looking at the analytics, when you see that, oh, this video only got this many views, or we only have this many followers, this many likes on a post, it kind of makes you question, like, am I even welcomed in this community? Am I even doing something right? But everyone starts somewhere, and I like to just change my perspective on it and focus on the process instead of the result. I mean, sure, it would be great to get to the result quickly, right? Who wouldn't want to? But the process is where you enjoy things, it's where you learn, and it can be so hard sometimes to just keep moving forward. But that's why we're a team, and that's why I like working in a team, because if it was just me, I can guarantee you this podcast wouldn't have lasted 4 months.
I know. Trust me. I know. It's a lot of work. I
It
told
is.
you I was editing just before I came on the air with you here. So, no, I think it's really great. I think that you guys have a compelling premise, and that I think is something that we both know this. The podcast market itself is exceptionally saturated, and the hope is that maybe you have an idea that is at least a little bit original, at least a little bit creative, and has that opportunity to stand out. And I think from what I've seen and heard so far, it's the fact that you're talking to everyday people, right? You're not trying to book actors, you're not trying to book, movie moguls, or you're not trying to book high powered rollers and shakers. You're willing to talk to a college professor, you're willing to talk to a law enforcement officer, you're willing to talk to somebody on the street. Um and I'm keenly interested in that. So really just excited to see what you guys do and where you go. What would be your advice to someone who's listening, and if this was the first time I ever sat in front of a microphone in my life, what would you say to me? Look, kid, I've been there, right? You're only 20 something. Would you be like, look, kid, here's what you need to do? Where does somebody start in your mind?
Great question. I mean, I'm still a newbie when it comes to this. I don't even know if I'm credible to give someone advice, but if you're since you're asking me, I might as well
Yeah,
think that I'm
you've
credible.
lived a life, right? It doesn't matter. You have had your experiences. You've gone through the things you've gone through, and you've established yourself in your life, in your frame. So, from your frame of reference, how do you give advice to somebody else who just looks at you and goes, "Dang, I want to do that"?
Yeah, what advice I would give for them is just don't give up. It sounds so cliche, but just don't give up. And if you really want to do it, just close your eyes, ignore the numbers, and just keep finding the energy inside of you that makes you want to keep doing it. It's so hard because there's so many struggles that people encounter, but don't be afraid to look dumb. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's a huge one. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That would be like number one on my list of advice, because I really think that's why many people, I've seen podcasts, and it's so sad when I see that they stop after 3 episodes, and they stop after 4 episodes, or there's they make an episode and then they stop for 3 months and make another episode. Be consistent. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Who cares if the audio is going to sound this or that, or if you're going to look this or that? Like, people will always say something, and sometimes it's just the voices in your head that you just have to shut down sometimes, because that's the one that's preventing you from doing it. But just be consistent, do it, and talk about something you love.
Right. And have the passion, have that ability to look beyond the numbers. The numbers has been one of those things, right? And I think every creator in every space, whether it is YouTube or podcasting or whatever, whether it's album sales or a band that's trying to get their demo out, I think every creator experiences that moment of questioning and saying, Jesus, am I even any good at this? Does anybody give it? I would agree. And so anybody who hears that from Joenrhuz, take it from me too. You've got to just close your eyes and push through, and don't listen to your own stupid little voice in your own head that says, "Oh, Jesus, no, I guess I don't know. I better go get a job at a law firm or something." Do
Yeah,
what you
exactly.
do and be passionate about it.
For sure. I mean, yes. I mean, sometimes it's yourself that's stopping you. You're that own wall that you're trying to break down. He's, yeah. I mean, you put it very well. Like, you just got to keep going, close your eyes, and just keep doing it. And maybe it'll get somewhere, maybe it won't, but guess what? You'll learn something along the way. Hopefully you'll meet some people along the way and just grow from there.
That's outstanding. Joenrhuz, JR, thank you so very much for putting in the time with me this evening to talk to the folks here on Project Creator. I am, again, I'm really interested to see what you guys do, where you go with your podcast in the future. I will be paying attention, and hopefully I'll learn a thing or two from you guys that I can use to make Project Creator even better than it is now. So again, nothing but respect and thanks and props for coming on and spending this time with me today.
Of course, no, thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the mic. And I'm so happy that we were able to talk today, and we'll keep in touch.
All right. If you want to be a guest on the show, you can reach out to me here, projectcreatorcontact@gmail.com. You'll find me on Matchmaker. You'll find me on Instagram. But I also recommend that you take a look at timecapsuleshowpodcast.com as well. Get over there and take a look. All right. Thanks so much, Joenrhuz. Have a good rest of your night.
Of course, you too. Bye.